The economy. For something so massive and so important, why do so few of us ever truly understand it? The clinical definition is that the economy is simply the sum of all transactions that take place within a certain area during a certain time. But what does that even mean? Maybe the best way to understand the economy is for me to take us back, way back to where it all began, like this. You see, me and Ugg, we were a couple of cavemen with a very common problem.
Man, Glug, my wife is going to kill me. I didn't kill anything today. You're such a better hunter than me.
But Ugg, you make such better spears than me. If I had one of your spears, I'd be an even better hunter. I could get even more animals.
Hey, Glug, how about I trade you one of my spears for your animal? You'll get more animals next time, and I won't have to come home empty-handed.
And thus, the first economy was born. An economy is essentially made up of markets where people with one form of money, good or service, trades with another person who has some different type of money, good or service. This continued exchange is called the market cycle. We had a good day. Sold like 4 porcupines.
Well, that's good. I had 6 spears sold today.
I can't make a good spear or kill a wild boar, but my caribou suits will last 3 winters.
I'll give you 2 spears for that caribou suit.
You should join our cave market.
Great idea. You want the lowest price? I want to maximize my profits. Through the markets, we can both maximize our wealth.
And just like that, the marketplace came to be. Soon marketplaces went from exchanges between individuals to places where skilled tradesmen could sell their wares to more and more people. Tired of smashing things with your club or your fist? Get tools! 5. I'll take 8.
7. Fire! Fire! I'm not kidding! The booth is on fire!
As my fellow cavemen and women focused more on specialized skills, this led to the creation of businesses, which in turn developed into industry. Soon me, Tug, and Ugg were all selling our wares throughout the local villages, and even to villages far beyond our caves. Many moons passed as each one of us prospered, but markets are also about other people trying to improve their self-interests. After all, competition drives innovation.
Hey, Glug, what gives? Where are all my customers? And who's this new guy over there?
Gather in, my fellow bipeds and Neanderthals. Forget everything else you have seen in this market. This is the product that you need. Today I present to you the Bug Mutilator 5000. A spear that is truly modern, truly manly, and truly magical. You can throw it, thrust it, and best of all, comes with a state-of-the-art retractable blade. Look at that. Kill mode, safety mode. Kill mode, safety mode. Kill mode, who wants one? How many wives you got? 1 or 2? There you go. Take 3 spears. Here, you take one. Here, I think you take one too.
Hey, where are you going?
If I may paraphrase Ralph Waldo Emerson, build a better spear to better impale a large woolly mammal, and the world will be the path to your door. See, innovation drives productivity, and productivity drives profit. The market is now a living, breathing organism, with cavemen and women determining the laws of supply and demand. The larger the supply, the cheaper the price. The cheaper the price, the greater the demand. The greater the demand, the higher the productivity. The higher the productivity, the cheaper the price. Which isn't to say that items not in high demand won't have a cheap price, but factors like scarcity, quality, and quantity will also determine value. The fewer of something there are, you can bet, the more expensive it will be. Over time, economies change. Where we used to rely solely on hunting and gathering, through the years the economy shifted more and more to services like being a lawyer, a doctor, or even a waiter. The government also gained an important role, helping to police the marketplace and keeping people honest.
Did you hear about Cave Off?
Glug never trusted him.
Well, at least they caught the caveman. It's nice to see our monthly tributes to the tribal chiefs finally do something. Well, I always say, without a trusted third-party regulator, markets always tend towards deceit, self-dealing, and all this nonsense.
Free markets function best if the playing field is level. If any one individual, group, or company has an unfair advantage, people lose faith, and the whole thing can crumble. Governments set and enforce rules to prevent corrupt and debilitating business practices like price fixing, monopolies, or insider trading. But too often, government can also be a source of corruption, leading people to lose faith in the markets. Everyone needs to believe that they're better off because of the markets that serve them. Customers need to feel that they get a decent product at a fair price, and in the end, markets are only as strong as the confidence that people have in them. We innovators need to believe that our hard work and good ideas will be rewarded. Ugh, I've got a new idea. It's called fast food.
You mean like a gazelle?
No, like it's really quick when it's brought to you.
Oh, you mean like a cheetah?
No, forget it. It's a stupid idea anyway.
Meet Michael. This ambitious 22-year-old has dreams of traveling through Europe on foot, discovering underserved communities, and creating an app that, totally changes the world. No, that's not you. You're not Michael. Sorry, my bad. Let's see, hold on a second. Find my assistant. Yes, of course. Your name would be Jonathan? Thank you very much. He wants to get his personal highest score on Flappy Bird. Oh, dear God. Jonathan, meet Kristen. She is a winner. Kristen, Jonathan. He is a Jonathan. Both of you should be paying attention to your econ teacher. But since you're not, I am here to help. So forget about class for the moment. Forget about charts and graphs. Forget about supply and demand. Let's talk supply and dance, man. Oh, and woman, of course. Go on. Keep walking. Never mind all those beautiful people with camera equipment. Congratulations. You now both own stores. Let's see what you can sell. Might work. Maybe not. Well, you tried. But wait. There you go, Kristen. Oh, yeah. Well, it's all right. If you only had some canes in your store. But maybe you do. And a few extra bucks for your extra effort? That's not such a bad deal, is it? Double yeah. But both of you could have made a few more bucks if you had more canes. Are you going to let that happen again? My suggestion, order more. Oh, wait. With the demand so high, looks like Kristen can few more bucks. Who can play at that game? People are loving the caves. Remember earlier when I said to forget about charts and graphs? I lied. Oz, not you guys. What you were seeing is how price is directly related to the quantity supplied from the shop owner's point of view. The higher the price, the more the shop owner is willing to supply higher quantities because it's worth it. People are buying and making money. All is good. This is called the supply curve. Unpause. But you see, at some point, if your price gets too high, your customers may not be able to afford it. And with your high quantity of supply, you may end up with a surplus. Now what are you going to do? Oh, great. You're just going to give up. Live your life with a store full of unsold caves. Lower price, but that's better than no sale, right? Oh, this should clear out some supply for you. Kristen, what are you doing? Undercutting your competitor. I like it. Here we go again. There you go. Canes are flying off the shelf. So much so you need to order more. Pause. What you were seeing here is the demand curve, and it's from the customer's point of view. The higher the price, the lower the demand because it's less affordable. But when a price is lowered, like a sale, demand goes up. This is called the demand curve. Now, when you place the shop owner's supply curve on the customer's demand curve, you see they move in opposite directions. Customers want to spend less. Shop owners want you to spend more. But there is a point where a shop owner and customer's interests meet. This is where the two curves intersect. It's where the supply perfectly matches the amount of demand. This is called equilibrium. And it's beautiful. You haven't heard a word I've been saying, have you? Oh, no, wait, that wasn't supposed to close yet. Jonathan, Kristen, excuse me, where did you... Oh, my goodness. What have I done? Well, at least we learned something about market forces and supply and demand, and the hell am I talking about? Just cut it. We're done here. Somebody give me a drink.
October night in front of millions. Two economic theories battled it out on GDP Smackdown. Ladies and gentlemen, feel the excitement! One of the most powerful forces in the country, in the world. It's a simple statistic. Gross domestic product! This one number sums up how a country is doing. But that one number forces us to confront one of the most powerful questions humankind can ask. Should GDP take into account the things we hold deep? The environment, democracy, education, parenting, freedom. It's the economic battle of the century. Let's get it on, America! Whoa! That's what I'm talking about, baby. Because I'm here to tell everybody, right here, right now, brother, I will meet you at Madison Square Garden. I'll meet you at Boise, Idaho. I don't care. Because when we meet, I put butts on seats and bumps and wallets cashed at it. That's what matters. Think about all day about how they love their mamas. But until they buy their mamas flowers, they don't mean jack at it. A lot of people think you're wrong. But you have to include the way people feel. Happiness, the earth, smiles, education. Time to slow down. If economic statistics only measure how much money is spent on stuff, then brother, you only got half the picture. This country's doing well. We have beautiful mountains and streams. When our children are getting an education, everybody feels like they got shot. When there is time for love. And I'm going to love taking you down. Start putting a value on that. This is getting intense. Too hot. Damn, wake up call, America. It's Simon Crazy Kuznets, the intellectual father of economic accounting. Wrestling fans, I don't have to tell you, Kuznet believes governments have to calculate the overall welfare of the country, and not just the dollars spent in the market. Let's get crazy! Holy checks and balances! It's M. Joseph Meehan, the Assistant Chief of the Department of Economic Research at the U.S. Commerce Department, from parts unknown. You get a lot of fancy theories, friend. You can't run a country on theory. I can tell you exactly how much steel was produced in the last year, how much it sold for, how many workers it took to make it. Oh, but how many dollars is a smile? You are in a fantasy world, friend. It is Neverland, and you are an ass. So there might not be a precise dollar value for liberty and happiness, but if we don't include these deeper questions in economic statistics, then we are saying that all that stuff is worth nothing, brother. America, can you hear me? Oh, this feels good. Ow, 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 ow. Ow! Look at that. Yeah. Oh, my God. You're hurting my quality of life. All right, boys, settle down. Save it for Madison Square Garden. Pay-per-view. Hard dollars. Smiles. Everyone wins.
On Friday night, Meehan won that fight. 14 million people tuned in at $49.95 a pop, which added just shy of $7 million to the U.S. GDP. But in that audience, 3 million people were terrified of losing their jobs. 5 million were having the best night of their lives with their families. 240,000 didn't realize they were drinking polluted water. 1.3 million stopped watching early to study. 20,000 people decided that night to change their careers so they could do something more satisfying. 425,000 marriages were struggling because of economic problems. And one guy in Montana decided to pet a wild buffalo. And that did not go well. But GDP didn't measure any of that. At some point, we have to put a value on those things. A guy petting a buffalo, that's worth something, right?
Thank you.
This looks so good.
Have a nice day.
Woo! Fresh squeezed lemonade.
Yeah, would you like to buy some?
No, because I'm already selling fresh squeezed lemonade right across the street, so there's no reason for you to be here.
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure mine tastes better.
You're adorable, and you gotta pack this stuff up.
There is something called regulation. And this is a free market, so I have the right to sell here.
Huddle up, guys. She knows economic theory. Hey, think fast, Garfield. Enjoy.
Hello. I'm government regulator. You called?
Yes, I did. I have a video
What's going on
about
here? Is this regulation cardboard? How about this paint? It looks very leady.
It's lead free,
Did you lick it to find out for certain? What kind of lemons are these?
organic.
Oof, no, I like the real ones.
This isn't about me, this is about him.
Oh, hi, Jerry. Hey. How are you?
I'm great. You looking good?
Woo, giddy up. Oh, he makes the best lemonade, doesn't he? Yeah, the urine's not going to work, is it? That would be a violation. Hi, Jerry.
Hello.
You are in violation of some health codes over here, Jerry. Personal hygiene and food protection. I'm going to have to fine you $200.
You're kind of wasting taxpayers' time and money with this stuff, you know?
Yeah, I have to slap you with one of these.
Oh, a D rating.
There you go.
For delicious.
No, D for disastrous.
Great.
Hold it up, up,
Yeah,
up.
good.
The customers need to see that. Higher, higher.
Together, I think that would help. It's such a good idea. Thank you.
Hey, hi. Jerry had some really good ideas. What do you think about that? Every business should have one. Do you want to see what's inside? Oh, it's like Christmas around here.
These gloves have been used.
They're government tested.
And how much does it cost?
It's only $100.
That's regulatory capture.
Oh!
Those are pretty girls need big words
That is like
for.
a big words coming out of there.
Look at that.
Say it again.
Lemonade, only 10 cents?
You're gonna shut me down and raise prices.
Oh, why are we dibble-dabbling like this? How about I just buy your stand?
We both know lemonade costs 25 cents to make, and you're selling it for 10.
Oh, that was awful. Wow. Hey, what's up?
What's up? Just here to
Uh-oh.
talk about the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. Familiar with it? You cannot engage in anti-competitive behavior. You start monopolizing, you could go to jail.
I'm sorry. Being industrious and competitive is what built America. If I just sit back on my haunches, what's going to stop the Chinese from coming in? I'm trying to protect this country.
Oh, I know, big, strong protector of America.
I think you should pay for your fine with this money.
Here's the thing, though. See, this is petty cash, and petty cash can, I mean, that can just go anywhere. I don't really know what.
I saw that.
Oh, I never learned magic.
Would you like some pomade? Thank you. Hello? Would you like some pomade? Pomegranate with lemonade.
Dominate my butt. This is my idea. All right, this is trademark and patent infringement.
You're just making that up because you have no customers.
Well, that's terrific and good for you, but you're going to have to prove that in court.
Court? I have school.
Well, guess what? In court, you're going to get schooled because I can afford the best lawyer on the block. Boom!
I spent all my time and money creating new ideas for my customers.
That's so cool. But yeah, you're going to have to take this off the market. Not until I'm done with this, though. This is terrific, and I do thank you.
Can I have one of your delicious promenades? What's wrong? Are you crying or are you trying to cry? Come on, kid. The oceans are rising and glaciers are melting. Just don't add to the level of water.
Only pollution and fossil fuels are better regulated.
It's this mentality of eat it all buffet. That's what civilization is all about. We'll disappear in obesity.
I just wanted to sell my promenade, but that man cheated me.
You are vile. You are vile and debased. This is regulatory capture, and you are lobbying big business, aka greed. Nothing but greed, and it reminds me of the jungle, where everything, everyone, all the lianas, all the plants are just jockeying, are just wildly out for the little bit of sunshine, and they all kill each other. And that's what you do to the American dream. Publicly, big business claims that they're for less regulations, but behind the back of all of you, they are just lobbying for more because they want to destroy small businesses that cannot afford the regulatory system. If Mr. Smith could go to Washington today, he would filibuster you back into your Big Bang wormhole you have slithered out of.
And you don't deserve that, A.
No, hey!
Yes, just take
You
it.
guys should come and work for me. I can give you minimum wage. That's good regulation.
Just let's think this through, okay? We haven't. Oh, guys! Really? Really?
That's what should happen.
Come on.
When winter strikes and the porcupines start to freeze, they have no choice but sleeping closer and closer together to stay warm. And thus, they prick each other to death. That's how it happens. How can people live in happiness, just in bliss, when there's so much misery, so much greed?
Promenade?
Thank you, thank you.
$1.
When you look out at the world, onto nature and its indescribable wonder and beauty, do you see money? Well, maybe you should. Look at those fish. Wait. Look again. How about that rain cloud over there? Sure, it has value to the human experience, say, the romance of getting caught in a storm on your way home from school, or the smell of rain on a hot summer day. But I'm talking about economic value, dollars and cents, measurable monetary value in economic terms. They say money doesn't grow on trees, but what if that's not entirely correct? Maybe in some cases, nature isn't just simply beautiful, but also has real, tangible value, productive value. In other words, nature often functions as actual capital, just as a machine would in a factory. Take bees, for example, like the blue-collar working force, toiling tirelessly, selflessly, and faithfully to pollinate all of our agriculture. Yet, they've never once submitted an invoice.
That worker bee puts in a full day's worth of work, and us as humans, well, we do account for it if it shows up in a jar of honey at your local Whole Foods, but that's about it.
Well, natural capital is a set of natural resources that are not only nice to look at and have around, but they're also productive in that they help us make things that we use every day. Bees are actually responsible for 8% of the total agricultural output, or about $190 billion.
They've done all that work for free. Without them, our food systems would collapse. Yet we don't recognize them as being an important part of our economy. There's an economic principle called common pool resources, which are resources that anyone can tap into or exploit, like
fishing in the oceans.
It used to be the case that oceans were so big relative to humans, relative to society, that limits simply didn't matter. You could always go out maybe a little bit further and still haul in the same catch. That's no longer possible. By now we have the technology to exploit oceans to an extent that has never been possible before.
And all of a sudden we get a problem typically referred to as the tragedy of the commons, where these common pool resources get overused. For example, you can think about Boston Common, founded in 1634 as a place for cows to graze. For a while this worked well, people would bring their cows, it was free and open to everyone. But as there got to be more cows, overgrazing became a problem.
If there were a bank account, let's say, where everyone had an ATM card, eventually, and probably sooner than later, everyone would take advantage, take out all the money, and the account would be overdrawn. We don't price nature. We don't account for the hidden economic value of nature. Like the northeastern trade winds delivering 20 billion tons of water vapor from the Amazon to South America. That's $240 billion of economic value. But how do we put a price tag on the rainforest itself, all the rich life within it? It's hard to put a value on these details, but we have to start in order to measure the true cost of damages that businesses put onto society and make sure they pay the bill, not us.
Every ton of CO2 emitted into the atmosphere today causes about $40 worth of damages.
Policymakers and conservationists have started introducing this concept of carbon markets, or sometimes called green markets. And this is one important attempt to put a price on the use of this natural capital.
When you increase the price of CO2 by accounting for the true damages, damages that each ton of CO2 causes, you can decrease payroll taxes, income taxes, and you basically create a win-win-win. It's a win for employment, it's a win for the economy, it's a win for the planet.
If somebody came and dumped a bag of garbage in your backyard, what would you do? Would you go? Would you say to them, come back here and clean it up because my children play there and this is my property? They have no more right to put that garbage in your backyard than they have to dump it in the ocean. And you have as much a property right to tell them to remove it as you do in your backyard. The Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, you own it. It's probably the biggest thing you're ever going to own. And when somebody contaminates it, they're committing an act of theft against you.
If our natural resources were a stock market, they'd be headed for a crash. And that's not to say that we can't use our natural capital, just that we need to limit behaviors where the costs to society outweigh the benefits.
The mantra that we have to choose between economic prosperity on the one hand and environmental protection on the other is a false choice. In 100% of the situations, good environmental policy is identical to good economic policy.
But beyond economics, we are connected to and part of our environment. So how do we truly value nature on this level? The kiss of the sun on our face, the smell of flowers through an open window, the roar of an ocean wave crashing to the shore, or playing with friends out in the field. All of these gifts and countless other indefinable details that are the beauty inherent in this wondrous planet we call home are worth respecting and preserving, not just because they serve our economies, but because they serve our humanness. In places that are just below the surface of our calculators, in the heart of the human spirit.
people with money that if they gave me some of their money, I would make them a movie about money. This is that film about money. You probably think that this is money, and that banks are where your money is stored for safekeeping, guarded in big underground vaults by guys like Gustavo. Well, you're wrong. Like, really wrong. Because it turns out that money is not a thing, and banks, in order to be banks, well, they need to be empty. Back in the old days, banks used to look like well-fortified temples. In fact, they were temples. Remember Jesus and the money changers? Nowadays, they've all turned into pharmacies and retail outlets. And actual banks these days now look like airport business class lounges. It's like they've given up even pretending that this is where they store the cash. I wonder why that is. Maybe if we made an awkward educational video on this subject, we could figure that out. So let's ask the question. What happens to your money when you deposit it in a bank? Here, for example, I am going to deposit $100.
Thanks, James. Your account has now been credited with $100. You will receive 1% interest, so in a year, your account will have grown to $101.
That's amazing, Ridu. But how does that happen? Does my money grow like a yogurt culture down in the vault with all the other money?
No, James. That doesn't make any sense.
So what happens?
It goes like this. If I have $100 of real cash and I put it in a bank, the bank gives me then the right to write checks for $100. But of course, they're not going to sit on that $100 waiting for me to write the checks. They're going to lend it out.
Right. They take my money and pay me 1% interest, and then they loan it out to other people and charge them higher interest. And the difference between those two interests is their profit. That makes some sense. So how much of my $100 does the bank get to loan out? And how much does the government require them to keep on reserve in case I need some money?
The reserve requirements are very small. You'd be surprised. If you put your money in the bank, you think they hold a lot of it and keep it safe for you. Actually, it's a very complicated formula, but for most banks, it turns out to be around 3%.
So, the bank sets aside a tiny fraction of my $100, and then takes the vast majority of the rest of it, and as quickly as humanly possible gets rid of it. For example, the bank lends it to Sally on her credit card account, so that Sally can, I don't know, go out and buy a Snuggie for her dog. So now a new bank account is credited with that money. That means that on top of the $100 that's credited to me in my bank, there's magically lots more dollars showing up in another bank. Sally's credit card debt has strangely created, well, more money. And what does this new bank do? It reserves a tiny fraction of Sally's debt, and then lends the vast majority of that, what's left, to Frank, who goes out and buys, I don't know, a baby wall hanger. So now another bank magically has a new deposit it treats as money, even though it is just Frank's borrowed debt. In fact, Frank borrowed that debt from Sally's debt. It's just more debt. And that shows up, amazingly, not only as more debt, but as more money. And the bank that loan goes into takes that so-called money and uses it to, I don't know, finance a corporate merger, or buy repackaged mortgages from another bank, and on and on and on.
Money is like a hot potato. Whoever holds it has to pass it on to somebody very quickly. A bank can't keep its money in the bank. They can't pay you interest, however low, without getting some.
This is what's known as the fractional banking system. As you can see, every time the banks move the money, their reserves go up a fraction, but the total money supply multiplies a lot. In short, this is not money. Money is not a thing.
The basic money is what the government prints and declares it will support. But banks have the capacity to kind of multiply that.
Here's the total amount of dollars in the world today. But here, according to the Federal Reserve Bank, is the total amount of money that's in the system. What makes up that huge difference?
Well, money is usually, except for cash, money is somebody's debt, somebody's IOU.
But I thought money was, money. Turns out money is a mushrooming, mutating pile of debt, of IOUs and promises, sitting on top of another pile of debt and IOUs and promises.
Money is weird because it's the idea that we have in our heads. We represent it with physical tokens, but it's really based on this general idea of trust that's sort of captured in a token.
In other words, for money to be money, We all have to believe.
Yes, it's all a system of beliefs and therefore very fragile.
There's no way the bank actually has $10,000 for every person that has $10,000, but it doesn't matter because all you need to do is have the belief that there's $10,000 in the bank for you to be like, keep working on your day. And when you do need the $10,000, chances are not everybody else is going to need the $10,000 at the same time.
So, I believe money really is holy. It redeems itself.
We cover dollar bill and like pictures of dead presidents. We put in God We Trust on it. We have a pyramid with an eye on it.
So what happens when somebody not as creditworthy as these guys gums up the works?
Things don't have to change very much for the banking system to begin to run into trouble.
And therein lies a tale to be told. This is the second part of that film about money. In our last installment, we learned that money is not a thing.
Money is somebody's debt, somebody's IOU.
And not just any old IOU, but IOUs piled on top of IOUs in a seemingly endless chain. Cash money, the kind that Gustavo guards, actually makes up a tiny portion of what we call the total money supply. And we learned that banks actually keep very few of our dollars in their temple-like vaults.
We don't actually care how much money the bank actually has, as long as we're able to make the purchases that we need.
So basically, your money is in the bank, as long as you believe it is, as long as everybody else believes it is, even though everybody knows it isn't. But we also know that the Federal Reserve Bank, which is kind of sort of part of the government, well, they do print money, and this money somehow gets into circulation in the economy. How do they do that?
Here's one way. You could load up a lot of big bags full of fresh new $50 bills, pick them up in an airplane, and each day over a period of a month go to a different American city and announce that at 12 o'clock we're going to open it up, the airplane flying over the city, and everybody should get out there with a garbage bag and collect it. Would that increase the money in circulation? Absolutely. Who would it benefit? The people who have big bags in the right cities at the right time. We don't do that. What we do is a very peculiar procedure. The Federal Reserve basically gives the money under various conditions to large banks. End of story. And it gives them the money and it says, please take this extra money that we're giving you, most of the time cost free, and please lend it into the economy so it circulates. Lend it out. The banks cooperate since they're getting cheap or costless money, which they then lend out at interest.
This system has gone on steroids since the economic meltdown of 2008, with the Fed and the U.S. Treasury pumping literally trillions of dollars into the banking system. But what have the banks done with all that free cash?
The special investments that we like them to make are loans. We want them to make loans, specifically to businesses or individuals that can't get money to invest in other ways. But what will they actually do, the banks? Kind of whatever works for them.
Well, banks have options. The option we had hoped for was that they would lend it out to individuals and to businesses, and so the money would circulate. The banks decided to do otherwise. They said to the government, you are running a big deficit. Here's your solution. You need to borrow the difference. This magic can be done if you borrow money from us. And here's very important for you to understand. The banks took the bulk of the money made available to them by the Federal Reserve and lent it to the government.
with the following arrangement. The rate of interest paid by banks to the Federal Reserve for fresh new money has hovered around 0.5%. The rate of return paid by the U.S. Treasury for the money it borrows from those same banks, 2 to 3%. If you understand that, you'll understand why the banks have recovered and nobody else has.
Okay, so that's what's happening now after the 2008 crash. But I still don't understand how we got so close to the financial brink. I mean, I heard all about the deregulation from the Clinton years, the mortgage-backed securities, the criminal settlements with the banks. But was there some deeper underlying cause to this crisis?
Over the last 40 years, real wages have been stagnating or declining, and yet productivity has shot up. So the banks have more and more money because that's a profitable situation, productivity doubling and your workers getting very little money. So the bank has to do something with it. And they got a bright idea. Well, it's really a desperate idea. They said, I know what we'll do. Instead of paying you to buy what we produce, we'll lend you the money. That was the bright idea. Well, that is a very short-run idea. I mean, if I don't have $10 this year and I borrow, how am I going to have $15? And my wages aren't going up. How am I going to have $15 next year to pay you back with interest?
So how did consumption go up in the last 40 years? Debt. Every time you use a credit card, you're borrowing. That's what that is. You're borrowing money. It's done electronically, but it's a debt. We made debt part of everybody's life. We gave the working class of America rising debts instead of rising wages. But when everything becomes debt, when every transaction for a bottle of water is in fact a debt, the banks who handle all debts become masters of the universe.
But at the end of the day, whether it's tax dollars, the Federal Reserve printing money, or your deposits, isn't it our money that the banks are playing with?
You're lending money to the bank when you deposit money. And this is what we forget. We forget that we are making a loan and we don't behave as creditors, and therefore they don't treat us as creditors. It's like, can I keep playing with that kind of money? Those creditors, depositors are such nice people. They let me play with no contract, no strings attached.
To make this system work, the banks need to constantly move the debt they owe you as a depositor to the debt you owe them as a credit card user and mortgage holder. So from an ethical outlook, they want you to look like this. But they want you, in fact, they need you to party with your credit cards like that. Which is probably why we're all a little bit confused about what our society wants us to be. I mean, think of it this way. We spend $1 trillion a year on advertising, making irrational appeals to ourselves to buy stuff that we'll have to borrow money in order to own. The goal is, in fact, to make you act like a bank, to take your short-term earnings, your paycheck, and turn it into long-term debts, credit card balances, and mortgages. It's not so much that corporations are becoming people, which they are, as that people are becoming corporations. And the story of that dollar that you put in the bank, well, that's kind of like the story of how you want to look like this. But in fact, you kind of look like this. Not too dignified, I know. But if it weren't for that kind of delusion, and delusion on an awesome scale, the economy as we know it wouldn't exist. And if it's any consolation, though it's probably not, banks need the same delusions you do. Which is why I wish that banks would go back to looking like temples. You know, in the olden days, the very center of the temple, the Holy of Holies, well, it was empty. But at least it was something you could believe in.
They're waiting for you.
In 10 minutes, Rob Rafelson will testify before the Senate Finance Committee. After 5 straight months of rising unemployment, the U.S. economy...
What the hell's going on?
Dad, come on, please. Get dressed.
Dad, you're my daughter. What are we doing? Where do we have to go?
What do you have, amnesia or something? Come on. What's this? Did you drink this?
Oh, it's so fuzzy. Peruvian vision quest.
Why didn't you drink this? Dad, we had a whole solution worked out. A multi-pronged economic stimulus package. We worked on your testimony all yesterday afternoon.
I really don't remember anything.
Daddy, Daddy, Daddy! Daddy, Daddy, Daddy! Masters of the universe! Masters of the universe!
Stop! Hey! Don't they have a mother?
Hey guys, come on, pillows down, please. Pillows down. Mom's in Africa. All month. And you better snap out of it fast, Pops, because you're appearing live on national television in 10 minutes.
Make that work.
Jammies. No.
Do I know you?
The car's been downstairs for 10 minutes. You got a suit up.
Just wait outside and turn, please. Outside, now. Thank you. You're the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board.
What does that mean? What's my job?
Daddy doesn't know what his job is. You're the big cheese. You're the boss of the central bank. You made over $77 billion for a government last year. You're a rock star, Dad.
No, I can't do this. I'll call in sick.
Okay, guys. Guys, playroom now. I need you in the playroom. Come on, let's go, 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 go. Thank you.
I just have to reiterate that we really...
Go outside.
Okay.
Thank you. Dad, you can't call in sick. You're smack up against the fiscal cliff deadline. There are people out there without jobs and they're hurting. You're giving that testimony today. You seriously don't remember what the Fed does?
I remember a big green mountain and a bear.
Stop. Stop. The Fed's job is to regulate the U.S. economy. That's all. Now get dressed. Finally, come on, let's go. Thank you, I got this.
Is he okay? I'm battling the wolves here, single-handedly. I'm so late.
What? No, just give me 2 minutes, he'll be fine. Go downstairs, thank you. Contact me later. Here, when you get back. Okay, so Dad, you make major financial policy decisions. You don't even have to answer to the president or the Congress. You're just influenced by the 12 regional Federal Reserve Bank presidents.
And 7 dwarves.
Means the 7 members of the Board of Governors, but you're the chairman, the boss.
Why do I have to be the grumpy one?
Okay, come on, Dad. Focus. You safeguard the entire banking system. I mean, if people start to panic and try to withdraw money from the banks, you can even control the money supply.
Yeah, you can just print more money.
I'll ignore that for now, animal. Okay, so your 3 main objectives are to maintain full employment, keep prices steady, and help determine interest rates for people trying to buy homes. Today, you're going to buy more bonds to stimulate the economy.
So people can buy more stuff. Watch this! Apps! Mini bikes! Nuts! Robbing the economy, yay!
That's my boy. That is my boy, right?
Mr. Rafelson, the breakfast is ready.
Okay, so here's today's speech, one of our better ones, I think. You're going to have to inspire confidence about the economy, so people will be braver about spending their money instead of hiding it under a mattress.
Wish I had extra cash to hide under the mattress.
Yeah, Dad, you only pay Irma minimum wage.
$7.25 an hour.
Well, how can you live on that?
Exactly.
Well, give me points for doing part of my job at least. employing people. And Irma, give yourself a raise.
Finally, a este hombre le hago de todo, le cocino, lavo hasta el carro.
Gracias.
Margaret, that's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Come on, we gotta go now.
Okay, Dad. You'll do fine. You got this.
I am the president of the Federal Reserve.
No, Dad. It's Chairman. Okay, so Dad, here's a hard copy of the testimony. Remember, you did just like I wrote it.
Thanks, honey. I couldn't do this without you.
I know, Dad. I know. Now go save the economy.
Let me tell you about recessions. A number of things can cause a recession, and none of them are good. Imagine a typical family, 4 people, a mother, a father, 2 kids, a dog. They have a small farm. They make money by planting crops. They use that money to buy shelter, food, clothes, a vacation perhaps. In a perfect world, this would just keep ticking along like that, but of course, it's not a perfect world. One of the things that makes recessions unpredictable is that they can have several different causes. Sometimes they're caused by a bubble, which bursts. Sometimes they're induced by the Federal Reserve, the nation's central bank. In this country, we have over 100 million families. And so if one family has an economic problem, the economy doesn't even notice that. But if millions of families begin having economic problems, then the whole nation notices that very quickly. In a normal economy, our banks are willing to lend. And that allows people, they borrow the money so they can buy a new car or buy a house. Farmer can buy a tractor, for instance, and that means he can plant more fields because he has more power to do so. One of the things that makes recessions unpredictable is that they can have several different causes, like a severe weather event. Imagine our farm family. The area in which they live is devastated by a drought. Suddenly, their crops are worthless. Multiply this by millions, then you get a national recession. Suddenly, there enters something that we call the fear fairy.
With this austerity budget and recession is coming back, and people are calling it a double dip, I think it folks are now lost a total of 1.2 million jobs.
In an economy, there are 2 emotions, fear and confidence. And when fear is in the saddle, well, then people are afraid of the future, and therefore they don't want to spend in the present. When the economy goes off the rails, Bankers become fearful. They're afraid they won't get their money back.
What if you had the perfect
And therefore they
driving integrated technology?
The bank's going to show up and say, thank you very much for taking that tractor back. And therefore the farmer loses his ability to make as much money as he was making before. When consumers start to cut back on their spending, producers have to cut back on their production. They have to let workers go. Unemployment starts going up. That's a sign that the economy is really beginning to get into trouble. And so the recession spreads and spreads and spreads throughout the entire economy. And just like there's a fear fairy, there is also a confidence fairy. When that guy shows up into the economy, suddenly people get more optimistic about the future. They're less afraid that they won't have money to spend in the future. The confidence fairy works just the way the fear fairy did, except in reverse. It's whispering good news into the person's ear. Good thing about recessions is that they eventually come to an end. With good government activity, such as tax breaks, unemployment, and construction projects, the Fed lowers interest rates, can help revive a floundering economy. That puts more money into people's pockets, and so they spend it. So people say, hey, maybe the dawn is about to come. At the bottom of a recession, both fear and confidence are, in fact, battling each other for control of the hearts and minds of men. You always hope that the good guy wins, and eventually he will, because, as we say, all recessions eventually come to an end. And that means that confidence has to have finally knocked out fear. Recessions are a profound effect of human nature. It is humans that cause recessions, and it is humans that end recessions as well. Somebody once said that capitalism is the worst system ever devised, except for all the others. And I agree with that. I'm Bob Pisani, and I'm the stocks correspondent for CNBC. Been there for 17 years. There's the New York Stock Exchange right there on the corner. That's Wall Street right here. And there really was a wall on Wall Street because that was the northern boundary of the city. But most of the activities of the buying and selling of stocks and bonds doesn't happen on Wall Street anymore. Wall Street has become really a state of mind rather than a physical place. I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I have to find out what the markets are doing and I have to understand it.
Okay, so are you going to handle reaching out to these people?
I'm doing that now.
I get about 1,000 emails a day. I have to go through what I call intellectual triage to essentially get through the morning. Thank you. Appreciate it.
When you hear the word Wall Street, what does that mean to you?
Like the stocks and finance and all of that.
I think of money and big banks.
Men in business suits from the movies.
I think stock exchange.
We know that the bull is down there.
First time I heard about Wall Street when I saw that movie, Wolf of Wall Street.
Too much. It doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I'm sure it should.
Well, what Wall Street means today, besides the narrow little street in downtown New York, it's the American financial market. And so it's anything to do with capital investment, banking, that's all Wall Street, even though it may take place in Los Angeles or San Francisco or, Pango, for that matter.
People ask me if I ever get nervous about being on TV. I never get nervous. I'm in a constant state of mild agitation all the time. Wall Street is a place where people go to invest in their future. Now, you might say, well, I don't know, stocks or bonds, and it doesn't really matter. It does matter. The state of the economy, what the interest rates are, how these companies are doing, they affect your life and your livelihood.
Wall Street affects everybody, whether they know it or not. They may not trade stocks themselves, but they're very likely to have, say, a 401k or be beneficiary of a pension plan. And all that money is invested in Wall Street. It's invested by somebody else for your benefit.
Morning, guys. Because there's now electronic trading. The floor activity is only a fraction of what it used to be, but it's still a great thrill to walk in here every morning. Good morning, guys. And the important thing is we're over 2,000 again, but as I talk to guys on the floor, there doesn't seem to be a lot of catalyst to keep it.
The stock market at any one point in time is a snapshot of what all the different parties, the buyers and sellers, think is the value of the companies in America.
Wall Street is basically the place and the people that you go to finance a transaction. So the economy in many ways doesn't exist without Wall Street.
So there's two headlines out of the Fed today. One, officials are saying that job gains might bring a rate rise sooner. And then the other headline is many Fed officials still see the labor market far from fully normal.
I'm Trish Regan. I'm an anchor here at Bloomberg Television. I do a show every day during the close of trading.
What's to prevent other emerging markets from doing the exact same thing?
What I think people need to know is Wall Street is Main Street, and Main Street is Wall Street. The two are completely intertwined.
The buildings we work in, the people we work for, the cars we drive, they're all connected to public companies. So a better car is made by a company that has better resources. Better resources are gained by being listed on a stock market.
What might the effect be on the market?
It's all about, greasing the economy, providing capital to the economy, and bridging the gap between the saver, the individual investor, and the entrepreneur, the risk taker.
If Wall Street is not funding businesses, well, that means that businesses can't grow. And that means the economy can't grow. And that means jobs can't grow.
All right, I'm good.
I mean, Wall Street is the place and the people and the institutions that are providing the financing, the money, for all the businesses around the country, for all of Main Street to exist, to grow, to thrive.
I'm Trish Regan, and Street Smart starts now.
But like any industry, it overreaches, and in this case, because it's so tied into all of our lives, when Wall Street overreaches, when Wall Street cheats, when Wall Street stumbles, it affects all of us, and we all lose because of it.
Wall Street's worst week ever, the Dow plunging 700 points.
There's no question that the 2008 recession was really a punch in the stomach to the U.S. economy and to the people of the United States.
Wall Street definitely has an image problem.
Wall Street giant Lehman Brothers filed for Chapter 11 protection, by far the largest U.S. bankruptcy ever.
You just think back over the last several years, everything from 2008 to Bernie Madoff. And when people see this, they think to themselves, why should I buy stocks? Why should I buy bonds if the whole system is rigged by this cast of characters?
We lost 8 million jobs in 2008. That is very serious, and we're still struggling. We've gotten them back, basically, but we're still struggling with the consequences of that.
Wall Street has always had its share of crooks, and so when a great scandal like Bernie Madoff breaks, people tend to associate that with Wall Street. That becomes part of the image of Wall Street, that it's a bunch of Bernie Madoffs. Well, of course it's not, because it couldn't work if it were. but there are crooks, and there always will be, and yes, you have to be careful.
The anger is justified, but I think that the ratio of good bankers to bad bankers is not that different from the ratio of good teachers to bad teachers, good bus drivers to bad bus drivers. There are plenty of honest people in that profession. Plenty of people who are just as outraged at the behavior of some of their colleagues as those on Main Street.
Yields keep dropping. Anything else? Do you want to do earnings?
Yeah, I'll do Best Buy. There's certain companies that I like to cover, like Best Buy. Best Buy has been left for dead for a long, long time. Everybody figures, everybody will go buy electronics on Amazon or something. Ready when you are, Bob? Very quietly, that's a company I kind of root for. Let's talk about Best Buy. Everybody gave it up for dead earlier in the year, but it went from $25 to $30. It's a scrappy player.
I mean, in a society in which no one ever takes any risk, nothing ever happens. Economies fall flat. And so investment banks, when they're acting in their best faith, provide a very important role. They match up money with risk, and it creates dynamism in the economy. It creates chances for individuals and entities that want to grow.
The fact is we need capitalism. We need Wall Street. It allows us to spread risk around in a way that if you didn't, no one would take that risk. It's very basic stuff. Why would I invent this new drug or this new digital music player or this new car or spaceship if it's all on me and I'm the only one who's going to lose money on this?
Where does Facebook come from? How was Google created? How did Tesla make it? All these companies made it because they went public. They were able to connect to the saver, to basically access their money to take risks.
When you're the markets reporter, you're always on. Do you think this is sort of lack of conviction right now? So what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in the next few months? So what could go wrong? I guess that's what everybody keeps asking. I'm a gigantic poll taker, essentially, about where the economy and where the stock market is going. It all sounds very nice, but as you can see, the street isn't particularly buying into it. Right now, the S&P is sitting exactly at 2,000. Guys, back to you.
The U.S. economy continues to really be the beacon in lots of ways for everyone all around the world. And the stock market is really just a reflection of that.
The American capital market is the most vibrant capital market in the world. Still is and probably will be for a very, very long time to come.
Over 225 years or so of Wall Street's existence, it has been a positive influence far more often than it's been a negative influence. It has been a major reason why the American economy grew so spectacularly into by far the largest and richest economy the world has ever known. Without Wall Street, that would not have happened.
some money and I need to learn how to complete and file a tax return. Yet the prospect gives me stress. Don't want to screw up with the IRS. Taxation Nation, it's your initiation.
First time filer, don't be nervous. I know tax and I'm at your service. Before we start, it seems to me that you should learn some history.
Taxation Nation, major legislation.
The U.S. was fiscally wonky on a patchwork of tariffs.
So Congress said tax personal income and drafted the 16th Amendment.
16th Amendment.
Was 1913 in the White House, Bill Taft was a hard-to-miss figure. The tax code that old Bill got rolling, as he did, got bigger and bigger. Some say the code's getting heavy, but taxes run lots of expenses. Health and the mail, education, roads, and our country's defenses. Get in the car and start driving. We'll ride the tax highway sans care. On April 15th, we'll be filing your return. 6 seconds to spare.
Me in the driver's seat. Taxation Nation to reach your destination.
Most filers take the short phone, see? They don't seek thrills like you and me.
Taxation Nation requires some navigation.
A gal like you is much too sporty. We should cruise the long 1040.
Taxation Nation, relief of irritation.
Wait, should I turn? Oh, so many signs to read and learn.
It's true, the tax code at this junction is always under mad construction. And here's why. Politicians find there's money to gain in redrawing maps to skip the total thing. Get Schedule E for AMT, you mustn't file too late. Or better yet, claim business debt. You should incorporate. Business or personal, you can choose which way you have the least to lose. With friends on the hill and a tailor-made bill, that crooked road means some pay bill. You got a hedge fund gains, you'll feel no pains. The fast lane's there for you. The rich pay most, but some will boast. It's less than what was due. Don't cause those freeze-wrap subsidies. You're losing if you miss them. Right off your bins, your spiritual twins, your kids, your yachts, exchanging with thoughts. Let's learn to play the system.
Where are we? Where are we going?
No, the tax code's growing. At first, the law was none too thick. Just 14 pages did the trick.
Why these modern age road pages?
Our tax code's 75,000 pages. Change the code, the lobby is safe, and we do on the truth of the day.
Tax laws just to
And some phase in and some phase out. Last year's production is a dead end.
What I file? What I deduct? I can't keep track of none.
Taxation Nation, self-assassination.
License and income statements, ma'am.
Well, can you just give me a break, officer?
I'm sorry, ma'am. There is no special dispensation for freelance comedians that occasionally do voiceover work.
Okay. Well, never mind. I'll just walk. It's fine.
They say our tax code now devours some 6 billion hours. Our fair share we'd happily pay in black and white. No, not this gray. Still the government hears our pleas. We'll dream of Cyprus or
Taxation Nation, pretend love, constipation.
And that's the talk show.
Oh, I'll talk.
Interrupt this adorable cat video for an amazing animated film on the debt and the deficit. I know what you're thinking. Boring. But everything is fun when it's a cartoon. So, see what I mean? Uh-oh. Don't worry, I'm fine. So don't click back to that cat video. Don't do it. Come on, let's go. 1789, the federal government was formed. That was also also the first year that the federal government ran a deficit. That is, it spent more money than it took in taxes. And borrowed to cover the hole. And for the next 220-something years, the federal government carried a debt. Except for 1835 and 36, baby. Best president ever. A lot of people use the terms federal deficit and federal debt as if they meant the same thing, but they don't. The deficit is the amount of money the government needs to borrow in 1 year. The debt is the total amount of money that the government owes from all of the years of borrowing combined. Most of this money is borrowed from investors, who the government promises to pay back with interest. Some people think debt is scary, sinister, even immoral. But people take out loans to do all kinds of important things, like go to college, which can be a great investment. Assuming you actually study. Over the past few years, America has been climbing out of a recession. And there's a debate among smart people about whether deficit spending is the best plan for helping the economy recover. One side says, government spending can jumpstart the economy like how spending during World War II helped end the Great Depression. But the other side disagrees.
Sure, it's fun to spend a lot today, but we'll pay for it in the long run.
But whoever is right about short-term deficit spending, pretty much all economists agree that in the long term, if nothing changes, the growing debt will become a problem.
It's true.
But only in the long term. The deficit in 2014 is around $500 billion. And the total debt to the public is around $12.6 trillion. This number does not include money the federal government has borrowed from itself, which would bring the total to $17 trillion. Some restrictions may apply. Now that's a lot of money. Just $1 trillion would cover a football field with $100 bills 10 feet deep. This is our house. And $12.6 trillion would look like this. But economists agree. The real question isn't so much how big the debt is in dollars, but rather how big it is compared with the total economy, or GDP.
Which is $17 trillion.
The reason for that is pretty simple. To a person earning minimum wage, having a $100,000 debt, say a home mortgage, would be really scary. But to someone making $1 million a year, a $100,000 debt isn't so bad. Same goes for countries. A large economy can support more debt than a small one. So, when people who know what they're talking about assess the debt and deficit, they talk about it as a percent of GDP. The deficit and debt have never been so high in dollars, but as a percent of GDP, it's been worse. At the end of World War II, the annual debt was significantly higher than today. And in the past 5 years, the annual deficit has decreased each year.
So that means there's nothing to worry about.
Woohoo! But that doesn't mean there's nothing to worry about.
Oh, man!
The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projects that if our policies stay the same, the debt will increase in the decades ahead to unsustainable levels. While there are a lot of expensive items in the budget, the CBO says there are 3 areas set to grow most dramatically. The number of older Americans is increasing, which will put a strain on Social Security in the future. Healthcare has gotten more expensive throughout the country, increasing the cost of programs like Medicare and Medicaid. And interest payments on the debt are likely to increase as the size of the debt grows. And if interest rates, which are extremely low right now, go up, it would get even worse. Whether you're conservative or liberal, whatever you want the government to do, fund schools or military, or deal with an unexpected crisis, all of it would become more difficult. So, what do we do?
Don't look at my check, Sonny.
Or my healthcare. Don't even think about it. You see the problem. Americans want their services, and they also want low taxes. But it's simple math. Managing the debt in the long term is eventually going to require some combination of raising revenues, cutting spending, and growing the economy as a whole.
Huh, makes sense to me.
Okay, you can go back to the cat video now.
You have to pay taxes, or else you're not going to get nothing done.
I mean, sometimes on a week-to-week basis, you're like, wow, that's a lot coming out of my paycheck.
People should really start asking questions as far as where our money is really going.
Where are we as Americans generally on taxes and government spending? What do we think is worthwhile?
Social Security, Medicare, defense, that is government actually spending money.
You know what we need?
Where have you gone to? Where have you gone to? I got to pay my bills, got to pay my rent. I'm hungry all night, but my money's all spent. Where have you gone to? Where are you hiding? I said, where are you hiding? I pass like a dog year after year, like a dog when I need it, you always disappear. Where are you
Think about that. The arguments we have with the Department of Education, almost literally a rounding error.
Most of the debates about how government spends money is politicians finding a way to grab someone's heart and make it seem as if some narrow thing they care about is really what government spending means, either good or bad.
I'm going to stop the subsidy to PBS. I'm going to stop other things. I like PBS. I love Big Bird.
Give me one damn program he said he'd cut.
He has cut entitlements.
There's no more cuts to make.
When someone says we don't have enough money for this space probe, you are removing the only thing that gives people something to dream about tomorrow.
When I think of government spending, one of the first things I think about is my dad lives in housing that is sponsored by the government. Now, I'm glad my dad lives there. I would never want to kick him out. I grew up there. I loved it. I had a great childhood there. I like a lot, but intellectually, I'm not sure that that is an optimal use of government money.
It's head versus heart, right?
Yes.
You weren't there, George, you told me.
Yes.
2 paintings I did of my wife when we were very, very young.
Penn South is supported by the government. It's middle income subsidized. We probably couldn't raise a family in the city without living at Penn South.
We have different generations here. That's what makes us so unique.
This is really the promise of subsidized housing paying off. It's a success story.
The year I was born, this place opened, 63.
It's when it opened, President Kennedy came here.
If you want to have equal opportunity for all Americans, if we want to rebuild our city, if we want to make this country as wonderful a place as it can be for the 300 million people who will live in this country within 40 years, then we have to do our task today.
We obsess over things like welfare and foreign aid and solar panels, but almost all of it is Social Security, Medicare, defense. So what's the right discussion to be having about the big things?
I think the obvious one that is most misunderstood is the Social Security number and just how to feel about that.
My grandmother was a Russian immigrant, and she didn't read English, but she used to listen to the radio all the time, and she said, "Thank God for Social Security." That was her favorite saying. And she was right.
Rise up, pearls again. Oh, is it in? Good.
I don't even think I'm going to be able to retire at 65. Maybe 70.
I don't think that's the magic number anymore, especially for our generation.
The more that people are being put back to work, the more taxes they are paying.
And then you get it in the middle and you get both sides. Kids going to college and mother-in-laws that need money.
Middle generation. It does get tough, yeah.
I think Social Security gets overblown with either no adjustments or very minor adjustments. Social Security is fine. There's a broad consensus, and there's huge room for compromise and agreement.
The military, I support. They're giving up their lives to our country, so I support it.
Okay, right, there's no x-rays involved now, right? Well, my wife just had surgery, and most of it was taken care of by Medicare.
The union provides us with a pension. Between that, Social Security, and Medicare, it's livable.
Globalization has become a religion. The reason I say that is because as someone who follows the stock market and individual stocks, I know that the profits have been great for the big international companies. Why is it? Because they've outsourced our jobs to the other countries.
To an extent that I think humanity has never experienced before, we truly live in a single world.
In the 9th century, China invented gunpowder. The Europeans didn't invent it until the 13th century, 400 years later. Today, Microsoft comes up with Windows, and within weeks, it's available across the world.
That is globalization.
All right, we're going back in the Wayback Machine. We're going back to 1950.
The typical American family in 1950 was in, you might say, a very optimistic mood.
And the new vacuum cleaner.
World War II put the economy back to work.
We were in an extraordinary position of having abundant manufacturing capabilities, great technology, an educated workforce, and the rest of the world needing to rebuild.
American family consumed goods and services that were overwhelmingly produced in the United States.
The latest model. Is that something?
Let's have a picture right there. You had cars that were made in America.
An alarm clock. For the guy who never could find a sharpened pencil. A radio. Oh. All right.
I'll tinker with it.
You'll tinker with it, yeah, in your shop. Straight.
The old car.
No yo-yos at the table.
Okay. Now, we're in 2014. What happens?
A very large proportion of what you see in your home is not produced in the United States.
Oh, look at this. This is from, this is from Switzerland.
Any automobile is made with parts that come from a number of nations around the world.
I don't know exactly what country these Rockports are being made in right now, but I know that we make almost no shoes in this country other than New Balance, and they don't fit me.
Most of the toys that you see around you would be produced in China, Vietnam, Malaysia.
There is a piece that comes from Mexico, another piece that comes from South Korea.
These Band-Aids are made in Jersey, Johnson & Johnson.
Take the iPhone or the iPad that have become sort of symbols of our modern technology. The iPhone. That's a American technology, but it's actually assembled in China.
Texting at the table, all right? I'm tagging photographs.
And some of its components have been produced in Taiwan and Japan.
I'm not pregnant.
There's no question that the material standards of living in the United States in 2014 are much higher on average, in fact, for most families, than they were 60 years ago. However, I think the sense of economic insecurity would actually be greater.
But it's not so bad. You know, we're not losing the house. Your dad has a job interview, right?
We've seen the gap between educated and less educated workers widen.
Jimmy, what are you grateful for?
Grateful that I passed math.
Yeah, what'd you get?
D+.
You're not going to get into even community college with a D+. You're not going to get a job. You're going to end up like your father.
So globalization has had enormous benefits.
Hundreds of millions of people in emerging markets like China have moved out of poverty.
But the comparatively somewhat less in wealthy countries, and costs have been experienced more acutely.
There is inequality and there is globalization, but that one doesn't lead to the other.
All right, it's 2075, and we have two alternate versions.
On the negative side, it's actually pretty simple. The international trade keeps growing, leading to more and more overconsumption of natural resources, clean air, water, food, all of which are now in crisis.
International climate change presents a global political challenge on a scale that we've never seen.
Globalization means giving them our jobs, and we take their pollution, and if that goes unabated.
I'm nostalgic for sushi. Oh, can't eat fish anymore.
A more positive scenario would be one where we make technological breakthroughs that allow us to reduce our carbon footprint even as energy consumption continues to rise globally.
I'm just so happy that you guys finally got me a disposable uterus.
But we had no choice, darling.
It's possible that if we talk about appliances, we would see many more things that looked like domestic robots.
I got you, Becky the robot. It's a rental, but you have her for a week.
I'm going to have her clean the garage and build the new waterfall.
Globalization will continue, and we can shape it so that we can use it as a positive force, positive connection between nations.
That type of integration also reduces the probability of war and conflict because, you don't want to go to war with the countries that produce all your stuff.
I think a globalized economy is a fantastic idea. I think what you can't do is just let markets rip. When you go into international competition, you have to have possibilities of helping people adjust to international competition.
We could have universal free health care for everybody for his whole life. We could have training for needed jobs post high school free for up to 4 years.
We need international agreements. We're not very good at those, but we need them desperately.
We know what needs to be done. It's not that complicated. The real problem is our politics. Whenever you have the magnitude of economic inequality that we have in the United States, it's almost inevitable that it will get translated into political inequality, and particularly in a political system like that in the United States, where we allow money to talk so loudly.
Starting gun for today and the greater days that lie ahead. Up through 1930, the city was one of the fastest growing cities in the country. It had cultural attractions, sports attractions, good schools, good housing, good transportation.
The 60s and the early 70s was the best time in my life.
Oh, it was in the 70s. Oh, it was good. Got hired as a sewing machine operator, making seats for all the cars.
One could
graduate from high school and get a job immediately and work there, have a nice career there, retire, and live quite comfortably. It was producing more cars and trucks than anywhere in the globe. We had the highest wage rates for blue-collar workers.
I was working sun up to sundown. My wife was working sun up to sundown. The cash was working. Everybody working.
So there's someone you know in your family or on your block, in your church, in your community, worked for one of the big three.
I'd get in cars and go, I made that. Had a little bit of pride, had something with my name on it.
It was common for somebody with no more than a high school diploma to have a lifetime job, a good pension, good health care benefits, and a fishing boat or a cabin up north.
We wanted to hit the road, and we wanted a big car. We didn't want to be in no box. And I had a 68 Charger, and as I say, I was playing chef. And you couldn't tell me that America and Detroit wasn't the greatest place in the world.
Everything left, the money left, the people left.
No one was willing to admit that we were heading in this direction, that we're in this long, slow loss of jobs and tax base and population. So the loss of factory jobs, deindustrialization was a major cause of Detroit's downfall. But the result is that Detroit went from being absolutely the top of the world and the fourth largest city in the country in 1950 to now being the poster child for urban decay.
I just kept waiting for them to automate my sewing job, but they sent it overseas, so.
Not just overseas. We've had jobs that left the Midwest, that up north have gone down south, and probably never to return.
The job that I was working left overseas. I'd say the manufacturing job left. The jobs that were remaining were service jobs. McDonald's, Burger King, Myers. Here come Japan and India, now China.
But those jobs that are gone, they may not come. And we have to face reality that there may not be a General Motors, a Ford, or a Chrysler with thousands of jobs coming to set up shop here in Detroit. That probably will never happen again.
Capitalism in itself is a rational concept. It's not based upon humanitarian ideals. I didn't understand the connections. That my job was going to be eliminated too, and eventually it was.
The plant manager calls a big plant meeting, so you all gather into one big room, and he gets up and says, there's going to be a layoff this week. It's going to affect a few areas, but we'll be okay. I'm thinking, yeah, you will. We won't. We don't know who it's going to be.
And you look at your wife, and she's smiling with security, and you say, babe, I've been laid off. And early on, this is what the reply. What are we going to do now?
Oh, it was bad. I did a lot of crying. Because I loved it. It was good money. I had good insurance for my family. And I have to do something else now. I mean, back then, working for a big three, your family, it's like, that was a big deal.
A man wants to walk in and see the brightness of his wife's eyes and the kids still laughing and having fun. And when it's silent, and when you look at your wife, she's fearful and the kids are not laughing. If you're a real man, it bothers you.
But I was fortunate. When I pulled myself back up and kept going to school. Every time I got laid off, I went to school to do something else. So I'm like a jack of all trades.
I realized I did not have the necessary skills and education for the brave new world that was coming.
It was time to go to another skill set. So I started going to nursing school, and they can't replace me now. Nobody can.
The big turnaround that we've made, the intellectual turnaround, is that we've accepted that we're not going to go backward. We're not going to be in the 50s again. The auto companies are never again going to employ hundreds of thousands of people. We have to reimagine the city for the 21st century. And the positive thing I see is that so many people have begun to accept that. So Detroit is more optimistic than people realize. People come here thinking Detroit's going to be completely in despair, and they're amazed at how optimistic the people are. Hardworking, dedicated.
The first day I got here, I thought, oh, there's something to this place. And so when they asked me, would I be interested in relocating, I didn't hesitate. I said, sure, definitely. I want to be part of this. There's a heartbeat here.
But we're making a bid for smaller types of manufacturing. Watches. Shinola, of course, is the brand name everybody knows. They've become enormously successful just in the last couple of years. With these little 1, 2, 3 person shops opening up in lofts and so on. And they're doing websites, they're doing all kinds of smartphone apps, all kinds of things like that.
We're one company doing our little bit here in Detroit, but it's nice to be part of that community.
So I expect Heinz to give back to Pittsburgh. I expect Colt to give back to Atlanta. I expect AT&T to give back to Dallas. And I expect GM and Ford and Chrysler to give back to Detroit and the Detroit area.
I think it's going to be back going to the good old days. I think this place is going to be rocking and rolling. You're going to see happy people down here. With all these big companies come, everybody's getting a job. If people have money, they're happy. If people can live, they're happy.
Detroit's a city of fighters.
When I think of Detroit, I think badass. Never quit.
The grittiness of the place, the willingness to tackle big problems.
We want these companies down here. We want to work. We want to work. Give us a chance.
Kind of took a nosedive. I got laid off on May the 2nd.
Factories have gone over to China. And that was our main business here, is textile business.
Do you know where your products come from?
A lot of us say made in China.
I'm looking for value. Sometimes after I get it home, I notice it's made in China. China has become, as some people say, the world's workshop. China's economic growth over the last 3.5 decades is really unprecedented in global economic history.
It comes down to Americans don't want to do that kind of work. They don't want to do the cheap jobs. We just rather go to the store and take it off the shelf, and it's easier for us because we're quick.
My name is Jack Collins. I'm from Walhalla, South Carolina. And I came to the Star to work in 1980 to produce some of the most sacred fabrics in the United States, one of them being the American flag for the VA department. My dad often told us he didn't want us to go to work in textiles. I can remember Daddy going up we'd go to Lester's, Uncle Lester's up there. He had 17 kids, and about every one of them at some point in time, textiles has affected their lives. If it wasn't for textiles, I wouldn't have anything. And I've got no hard feelings about the Chinese or anybody about what happened to textiles. I just doing what I need to do to take care of myself and my family. I haven't been here in about 10 years. This was one of the most modern plants in the area and in the country. To see what it is today, it is heartbreaking. You know, in the early 1990s, we had a lot of business with Walmart. I can remember 150 employees making $7.5 million in this plant. Walmart told us, no, we will not give you a price increase. We don't want to hear anything about wages. We don't want to hear anything about benefits. This is what we're going to give you because we can get this fabric from overseas. So that's the straw that actually broke the camel's back. About 2000, we ended up shutting the door. Now it's going to take somebody with a lot of money to fund it to get it to where it'll operate and put some of the South Carolina people back to work in Texas because it's in our blood.
I grew up in the military, so you just don't ever know where you're going to land. This area that we're in right now was actually about 300 sewing machines. I've worked just about every department I think that there was. This department was just completely shut down and finished. 2014, Schumacher officially was moved for Sun Fiber to own the complete building and house it by themselves.
China, from 1978 until the 2000s, didn't spend anything overseas. Last year, 2013, we had $14 billion of Chinese activity here. And what we're starting to see is made by China in America as the story.
对于整个一个选址，第一个是因为南卡是美国的原来的纺织品的一个中心，然后我们的客户离这个美国东岸就也比较近。
All the things that made China very, very cheap in the past are rising up very quickly. Labor costs, environmental compliance costs, regulatory costs, those things are all changing.
We have many other cost advantage in terms of land costs, utility costs. We have this very efficient port down in Charleston.
I'm the only one from Schumacher to transition with the building. And even today, when I look around, I see what this place was and what it is now. I guess that's the sad point that you know, life goes on, and sometimes, you know, you're left behind or you're separated from friendships. But I think it's great that jobs are coming back to the area, and I think the new space is going to welcome it, just because it's been so empty for so many years. It's really brought hope to a lot of people that don't have jobs.
Today, we have globalization 2.0 for China. The American labor force, you know, is over 100 million people. By our count, we've got about 70 to 80,000 Americans who are getting their paychecks from Chinese affiliated companies today. That's the new part of the story that we're living through right now. We're just at the very beginning of it.
Greenfield dates back to the 1840s when we were purchased by TDC, a Chinese company. The first things, of course, that come to mind is they will no longer value the made in the USA aspect that we bring to our customer base. They will take everything from here and move it to China, and everybody was concerned jobs will be lost, opportunities will be lost. The interesting thing that's happened has been the exact opposite.
They are basically closing down a spinning mill over in China and developing it here. It's exciting to see that the textile manufacturing business that was so prevalent here in the Carolinas is returning.
I do think people, particularly governors and mayors that are trying to attract Chinese investment, do think first of jobs. But it does go beyond that. And I think in some sectors, Chinese firms have become quite important in even the revival of U.S. industries.
America's a massive economy. That's going to be a relatively small part of the story, but an important part of the story. In the communities where those investments are happening, it's huge.
I would love to go in a brand new textile plant today. Will it make a comeback? I hope it will.
If China was to come over here and create a manufacturing plant, there's a good possibility that people with educations my generation would take a job because there's nothing else for them to do.
My cousin works there, and they said the benefits after
Chinese purchases, wonderful. A lot better than what they have. People in poverty might be able to get out and find themselves something to do besides sitting at home wishing. It's just a fact of life that we have an integrated world economy now.
This is a country, we've always survived. I still got the belief that we're gonna flourish.
If you work together, you learn more about each other, and that way you know each other's habits and you care about each other more.
Stuff. More stuff. All this stuff. You name it, we have it. But what we don't have, a clue about what's inside this stuff. We don't know where it comes from, or who made it. We know almost nothing about our stuff.
So, tell us about what you have in your hand.
That's my trusty phone. I'm deeply attached to my phone.
Doesn't complain. It more or less does what I ask it to do. I'm in love with my phone. I have two phones, one iPhone and a BlackBerry. It's very utilitarian, but these things don't just magically appear out of the air. And there is a vast global supply chain.
The supply chain is a way of saying there is a chain of production. Dozens and dozens of countries are involved in mining the metals, processing the different commodities, parts, components, shipping. It's pretty incredible, actually.
This cellular portable weighs only 30 ounces.
Around 1980, there were 20,000 people who had mobile subscriptions. There are about 7 billion of them on the planet now. In fact, it may be the fastest scale up of any technology in human history.
Your phone, it's a tin device. Tin is the most ubiquitous material of the digital age. It's the glue that holds everything together. There is a vast global supply chain, and the sale of electronics pretty much drives the market. The price per tin. The bulk of the global supply for tin comes from this one tiny little province. When I was there, I saw horrible conditions for poor workers who are exploited for a few dollars a day, literally. Small-scale miners, most of them immigrants to the island, digging in these horribly dangerous conditions. In a one-week period when I was there, 5 people were buried alive. I can still see those guys in the pits that I saw when I was there. It's the bottom dollar of the supply chain.
And why is it important for me to know about all this stuff?
It's important for you to know because by choosing to pay whatever you pay and choosing to buy the brand that you buy, you are effectively condoning their practices. When we look at every part of the economy, meaning companies and then all the parties that they touch, we all have responsibility here. We all have a role to play.
This phone, this beautiful object, is the creature of a great deal of ugliness.
life is not fair. But look at what these people were doing before, which was even worse. Or if you look at the step forward, which will be a little bit better, and it's through a very large number of these small steps that people eventually transform backward countries into modern developed economies. But they have to go through these steps. The big companies, they're not sugar daddies, that they could miraculously lift the teeming multitudes out of poverty. The best we can hope for the big companies to do is to enforce standards amongst their suppliers, because it's simply the right business thing to do. Inhumane working conditions, people have discovered over and over again, are bad for business.
We need to build a market that rewards ethical behavior. We need to build a politics that punishes unethical behavior. I want to see worldwide standards in place and accountability and reporting and transparency. When companies cheat, we end up with massive oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico. When companies make profits at any cost, we end up with populations that are impoverished, unhappy, and then we end up with violence taking the position we don't have to care about the exploitation of the poor abroad comes back to haunt us very badly.
Unethical behavior is best controlled by local governments. What I fear is that the well-intentioned prescriptions offered by Western economists bring to a halt a process that has led to immense improvements in living standards. In the end, us buying these phones is helping these conditions. It is the insatiable thirst of American consumers that has lifted billions of people outside the United States out of poverty.
The consumer has a big role to play. I've seen studies that show that fair working conditions for a pair of jeans might add 5 cents onto the retail price. In working with companies, a lot of what I hear is, well, we would love to do this, but the consumer has made it very clear that they're not going to pay for better practices. Why do we accept that?
Consumer companies, and they worry about their image, and they have a huge incentive to try and make things better. Especially in these days of social media, using the very device that we're talking about, things can go viral, pressure can be brought very quickly.
But consumers have to demonstrate that this is really important enough to us. Knowing that people have no other economic opportunity is not an excuse for human rights abuses.
People have the right to live in dignity, and they have the right not to be exploited, and they have labor rights, and they have environmental rights. In other words, we shouldn't have to choose. All of them are needed for the quality of life on the planet.
We graduated from our sweetness school. Tomorrow we all get to go to the lollipop factory and get our jobs. All of our dreams are about to come true. Yay! There is a land where dreams always come true.
You must be our new alpacas! I'm Doug Banshaw, Assistant VP of Human Resources for Lollipop Inc., a subsidiary of TWP International and the Benton Group.
I taste yummy!
Yay!
This is the Lollimatic 5000. It can take molten sugar and make it a solid treat in 0.5 seconds. Now, I bet you're all wondering what your jobs are. Happy? Your father is the finest man I've ever worked for. We're thrilled to welcome you as our brand new Junior VP of Synergy. Here's where you'll work.
Ooh, what's a VP of Synergy?
I have no idea, but it pays high six figures and comes with stock options.
Yay! What about me? I went to engineering school and studied lollipop manufacturing.
Great news! We have a lot of management opportunities at some of our other plants, where we pay low wages because the countries are poor and have a lot less regulation. Places like Bangladesh, Honduras, Qatar, and Gary, Indiana.
And all our dreams come true in those places too?
Well, sure they do, so long as you're not gay and don't believe in free speech.
I create insulin resistance, which dramatically increases the severity of diabetes! Type 1 and type 2! Whee!
And what about a job for me?
I don't know who you are.
I'm Sunshine. I went to PS 152. We had metal detectors, and our books were 30 years old.
Oh, we just laid off a bunch of manufacturing workers when we got the new Lollimatic.
But I thought all of our dreams would come true.
You are gullible, aren't you?
Yay!
Seriously, guys, give it a freaking rest.
I'm sorry, Rainbow.
Sunshine!
I'm sorry, Spitshine, but you should take after your hardworking friend Happy here.
So, because Happy had rich parents and went to a fancy school and I didn't, I'm screwed?
Listen, Missy, the economy changed. There's huge opportunity now, especially if you take advantage of global trade and new technology to innovate, disrupt, and transform existing businesses. That's what Happy and her family did. That's why they're so freaking rich.
But it's not just trade and technology. The system has become rigged. Government has been favoring the rich at the expense of the poor. The rich pay lower tax rates than ever, but minimum wage hasn't kept up with inflation.
I'm a maker, you're a taker.
You're Paris Hilton with hooves.
It's 130 degrees right now in Qatar.
Girls, meow. Put your hooves back in. Look, I'm sorry we don't have better jobs for everyone, but sales are down. People just aren't buying lollipops like they used to.
Duh, with wages so low, who has money for lollipops?
Hey, I just noticed something. You three perfectly represent the crucial economic trends of the last 40 years. Since the mid-1970s, about half of all economic growth went to the top 0.1% of earners. That's like you, Happy! The other half of growth was split among the top 20% of earners, people with solid education and specialized skills, like you, Giggles! And the bottom 80% of earners, the vast majority of Americans, have seen no increase in their wages at all. Many make less now than their parents did 40 years ago. That's you, Sunshine!
Well, that's how the market works. Can't blame anybody.
Actually, most economists believe that rising inequality is the result of both market forces and government policy. And finding a way for the economy to grow and see its benefits shared broadly is the crucial political and economic challenge of our age.
He's never shut up.
Spit my head!
to an hour. Right there for 3 years, I'm still making $9 an hour.
2 cents. I'm a liquor clerk in the liquor department.
I'm the one that stocks the shelf,
Pretty much make the food for you guys. Delivery guy?
I do food samples in Costco. And when I get my paycheck, I'm really happy because I earn it with my hands.
In the U.S., the national minimum wage started with Franklin Roosevelt in the midst of the Great Depression in the late 1930s, so that low-wage workers could support themselves and their families. And then when Ronald Reagan was elected president, he vetoed minimum wage increases, and from 1981 until 1990, the minimum wage stayed constant at $3.35 an hour. Because we had inflation in those years, it eroded the purchasing power of the minimum wage, and the value of the minimum wage fell by over 20% in that period. We still haven't recovered the value that was lost. And what fair minimum wage is continues to generate lively debate.
And we're back out here live. They're blocking the road so the traffic can't get through. Seattle's mayor sent out several tweets of support today, including one that said, "I support fashion workers' organizing effort because they deserve a living wage."
We did a strike, and we actually went on site and told them we need more money. There's some people who actually walked out of the store while we showed up on strike. It was really exhilarating for me.
What was exciting was just to know that, you know what, this is right. It's the right thing to do. This should have been done a long time ago.
Entry levels, as nicely as I can put it, is basically the crack job. $15 an hour will have a huge impact.
It is incumbent on Seattle's leadership to vote for the interests of workers. Globally, you see the number of billionaires increasing, but poverty is also increasing and magnifying. When workers walked out in Manhattan in 2012, the demand for 15 really blossomed all the way on the other side of the continent in Seattle.
There is economic inequality, and it's a byproduct of our free market system. But unfortunately, the more you do to fix that inequality, the more you put at risk the potential for economic growth. By raising the minimum wage, you're actually disincentivizing fast food companies and any business to do more than what they already do.
Last year, our bakery had just a little over 35,000 labor hours. So we would have to bring in an extra $45,000 worth of revenue and or cut costs for every year for the next 10 years based on an increase to $15 an hour. That's a pretty heavy burden to bear on a small business. It's going to end up resulting in an increase in prices and the potential cutback in labor or service hours or product offering. Something has to give.
I have 6 ice cream shops in Seattle. I do see my bank account declining over the next few years, but I would rather that than feeling like my employees might need to go to a food bank.
You know, I get a pension from the Navy, but with the price of food, rent, and clothing, it's not enough.
We've got to figure out how to get more money in the hands of our people. You know, we've got to move minimum wage up. But at $15 an hour, you just won't be able to hire inexperienced people and spend the money on developing their skills. You better have people that can hit the ground running.
The $15 minimum wage movement is a little bit ridiculous. I know that I definitely don't deserve $15 an hour feeding people or serving them drinks and such.
I look at the purpose of a minimum wage as an opportunity for anyone to learn, grow, then move on.
If you're a dishwasher or a server at McDonald's, is your rental price any different? Do you get to go to your landlord and tell him or her, well, you know, I'm an entry-level worker, so you're an entry-level landlord. Can you wait for 6 years before I can pay your rent? No, it doesn't work like that.
I just focus every day on getting money for the kids, you know? So every day is just that.
I was unemployed for nearly 2 years before the unemployment ran out. I was applying left and right, anything I could find. I'm doing what I have to do, but at this age, it's scary to think that I'm 54. Another 10 years, I'll be like at retirement age, and I have no savings left. That was all obliterated. I
I believe people needed to be walked up right to the cliff to look over and see that we would basically end up in a mini class war in the city if we weren't able to find a way to compromise.
Licata?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Sawant?
Aye. The nation's highest minimum wage is coming to Seattle. The Seattle City Council voted unanimously on Monday to gradually raise the minimum wage over several years to $15 an hour.
9 in favor, none opposed.
Move that wealth back to the economy, and people go out and they buy a microwave or a TV set, or they send their kid to school for higher education. Those things stimulate an economy.
Yo todavía tengo mi sueño de progresar, ayudarle a ella con sus hijos, ayudarle a sacar los niños adelante. En el futuro, si Dios me ayuda, con más trabajo o que me paguen más, trataría de comprar una casa más grande para mi familia. Ese es mi sueño.
My out-of-reach dream would be able to pay off all my mom's debt, buy her a new house, and just completely take care of her for the rest of her life.
My own restaurant, maybe?
Do you think realistically that you could achieve that?
No. No, I don't. I'm gonna try to do my best I can for my son, so he can get a better job.
Experiencing visual disturbances.
Let's run a chem lab, urinalysis,
functional MRI, and a PET scan.
I don't want to die.
Oh, we'll try not to let you die, but... You have a terrible headache and you're experiencing visual disturbances. Is it like flashes of light or more like a dimming feeling?
One worse than the other.
Definitely.
Which one?
Which one do you have?
Both. I don't want to die.
Oh, we'll try not to let you die, but it might be pretty expensive. We'll start with a simple blood test.
I'll do that.
That's okay, I've got it. I do about 100 of these a day. You won't feel a thing.
It's true, she's terrific. I'm not very good at all, but if I do it, we can charge you more, the hospital earns more, I earn more, and everyone's happy. Try to stay still. Let's run a chem lab, urinalysis, and a cervical spine x-ray.
That sounds expensive.
It depends where you are. A cervical x-ray will cost you $2,100 in Kodiak, Alaska, but only $200 in La Mesa, Texas.
Why? Sorry. States regulate healthcare, not Washington. Creates that rich tapestry that makes America great.
But we can do it for $500.
Seems like a lot of tests.
Ouch.
It is. But we don't want you to sue us when you find out that we missed your brain tumor.
I have a brain tumor?
We'll do a functional MRI and a PET scan, and let's get this with and without GAD.
What's GAD?
It's a dye we put in your veins for contrast, so that means we'll do the procedure twice, no worries.
Do I have to pay twice?
Yes. You know, this would be so much cheaper in Belgium, Argentina, South Africa. You know what they say, for the price of a colonoscopy in the U.S., you can fly to Switzerland, rent a chalet, ski for a week, and get a colonoscopy. We're going to play something soothing so you can relax.
Do you want light jazz, soft rock, or the history of U.S. healthcare?
Light jazz?
Get stuck on channel 3.
The history of U.S. healthcare. Good choice.
Hello, and welcome to my podcast entitled Why Is My Hospital Stay So Expensive? In the old days, people mostly went to hospital to die. There wasn't much you could do for them. But as medicine got better, people started going to hospitals to get well, and that cost money. So the hospital set up funds where you could get treatment in exchange for a monthly fee. Out of that involved the first hospital insurance. Soon employers and unions started offering health insurance too. During World War II, factories needed workers for the war effort, and they competed for them by offering health insurance. Getting private insurance through the workplace became an American tradition. Throughout the 20th century, the rest of the industrialized world was moving in the opposite direction, towards government-run national health insurance. Why did America not adopt a system that would have covered everybody? Well, the insurance companies fought it because they'd be losing money, and the doctors fought it because they would lose money and independence. And a lot of Americans just didn't trust the federal government to run their health care. When Harry Truman tried to bring in national health insurance, the newspapers called it communism. Finally, in 1965, the Johnson administration did establish two government programs, Medicare for the elderly and Medicaid for the poor and destitute. Everyone else had to scramble for private insurance. The system we ended up with was enormously complicated because every insurance plan was different, and it left millions uninsured or in danger of bankruptcy when their insurance runs out. In 1974, Richard Nixon tried to change this. He proposed a comprehensive health insurance reform plan that was rejected. 40 years later, a very similar plan was passed, the Affordable Care Act. Will it survive? Will it be embraced by the American public? Who knows? Why don't you just lie back and enjoy the most expensive healthcare system in the world?
What are all these codes? I don't know what this means.
No one does. Let me show you something. Come on. These folks are all working on your bill.
Just mine?
There's so many types of insurance and so many different types of insurance benefits. We had to hire thousands of coders.
Who pays for all this?
So we all do. Let's say your insurance company charges you too much or disputes your claim. And you can dispute that. Hospitals and insurance companies hire even more people to deal with the disputes, and it all works its way into your bill.
Healthcare is so expensive because people have to challenge it because it's so expensive?
You got it. Hey, Ms. Insurance.
Hey.
We were just talking about you.
Hey, what's up, guy?
Oh no, who let him in?
This is Mr. Pharmaceutical.
He's another reason all this is so expensive.
We need to talk.
No, don't get all cozy with her. She's not your friend. I'm your friend. You want a great new drug? Want a great new drug? Huh? Try and get her to approve it.
You can't even afford what this guy is pushing. Intervention!
I don't want you to think of this as an intervention. It's more like a group of people sitting in a semicircle sharing their feelings. Who would like to start?
I would.
Go ahead, Mr. Pharmaceutical.
She's always saying big pharma in this real disdainful tone. I mean, she clearly has no idea what it is I do. I foster innovation. I bring new products to market. I mean, do you have any idea how much I spend each year in research and development just so he can feel better?
What does this even have to do with him? I am the scapegoat here. Everyone hates me. Your premiums are too high. Your copays are too high.
I don't sound like.
Maybe that's what she hears. Miss Insurance, do you feel people are always blaming you? Did your mother blame you for her unhappiness?
What? No. Look, I have to pay lobbyists to lobby senators and congresspeople.
Lobbyists are so expensive.
There's some common ground.
He refuses to allow cheaper, more generic versions of his drugs to be sold. Everything has to have a patent.
Why does everything have to have a patent? Because otherwise everyone will copy me and drive the price down. I'm sorry, that's inappropriate.
You need to feel special. When you were growing up, your brother was the special one, right?
But why don't you ask her? Was she so needlessly complicated?
Say it to her.
Why are you so needlessly complicated? Why do you have so many different plans with different coverage? You know what I think? I think it's to exasperate people so they stop making claims against you.
Yes, it is.
No. Why can't you charge one price for the whole procedure instead of for every blood test and an aspirin? Why can't hospitals list their prices, and why isn't there price control like there are in other countries?
I'm sorry. We're out of time.
Now, where were we?
I was paying my bill.
Medicaid? No. Medicare? No. Oh, good thing I have insurance. Oh, this expired. You did pay your premium. Sorry.
What? But you haven't even diagnosed me.
Oh, hey, great news. The MRI shows that it's just a migraine headache.
Oh.
Do you want an ice pack?
I can't afford it.
Yeah, there's another one down in reception.
You have a terrible headache and you're experiencing visual disturbances.
Let's run a chem lab, urinalysis.
Functional MRI, and a PET scan. I don't want to die.
Oh, we'll try not to let you die, but